Good morning. My name is Susan Reardon. I'm the staff hearing officer, and I call the meeting of Wednesday, December 9th to order. Today we have 4 items on the agenda, and I haven't received any requests for continuances or withdrawals or postponements, so I'll hear them in the order that they appeared on the agenda. Under announcements and appeals, I just want to remind everyone that the staff hearing officer meeting of December 23rd has been canceled due to the holiday break. There was a recent appeal on a medical marijuana dispensary at 2609 De La Vina Street, and the Planning Commission hearing date hasn't been set yet, so once it's set, I'll announce that here. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the staff hearing officer on items not on today's agenda? No? Seeing no one, we'll go to the first item, which is 866 Paseo Ferrello, if the applicant would like to come up. Good morning.
Good morning. Do these stay in this down position?
No, you can move them up so they're here, yeah. Anytime you're ready, Tony.
Yes. Morning, I'm Tony Bauman, assistant planner, and this is a request for a front setback modification for a single-family house at 866 Paseo Ferrello. This is in the Riviera neighborhood, the lower part of the Riviera below Alameda Padre Serra.
I need to ask you if you're going to be talking to make the room. Great, thank you.
This shows Paseo Ferrello itself to give you a sense of where it is, and it's this house next to the end of the cul-de-sac. This area was downzoned in 1975. That explains why all these houses they all have a similar setback. The setback when the houses were built the front setback was 20 feet. And it was changed to 30 feet, resulting in non-conforming front setbacks. So this request involves a front deck attached to the front of the house.
We have photos here.
Oh, there you
Here's
go.
a good one that shows it.
It's under enforcement. There was some exterior remodeling going on last year. And there was a complaint resulting in an enforcement case, and that's being resolved in building permit plan check. And one item that was discovered and brought to light under that plan check was that the front deck attached to the front of the house had been expanded. I've got the site plan outline. The yellow outline is the property line, and the green shows the front setback. So the front of the house was built conforming to a 20-foot setback, so now the setback is back here. It had an attached 4-foot wide deck. I've outlined the entire deck in pink and cross-hatched the part of the deck that was expanded. And there's no good evidence to show that expansion of that deck was permitted. So we're considering it not to be permitted and requesting a mod for it as built. And the applicant would also like to change out these 2 front windows to French doors, and those are shown here in blue. So they're also out here in the front setback. And they're proposing a terrace on grade, so they would have the new French doors opening onto the terrace. It went to the single-family design review board for comments, and they thought it was fine, that they aesthetically appropriate improvements. Even the glass railings, the SFDB looks very carefully at glass railings, but they found this to be acceptable. And staff recommends approval of the modification request. I apologize for a typo on the first page where we referred to a condition. We don't have any recommended conditions of approval. So staff's position is it is an appropriate improvement. We looked at it from the point of view that it wasn't existing. If someone was proposing to expand that deck today, we think that would be supportable as an appropriate improvement. It certainly falls in line with the pattern of development on Paseo Ferrello. I highlighted these property lines in red to make them more visible. And this is the deck. Well, this is the front of the house, and you can see the deck out here. And it's very consistent with the other houses on the street, and the Riviera, the larger Riviera area also. And these two houses next door both have similar front decks, even closer to the front property line. So that's it for my presentation, unless you have some questions.
Okay, no, I don't at this time. Would you like to state your name for the record and provide additional comments?
Sure. Trish Allen with Suzanne Elledge Planning and Permitting.
I'm Tracy Burnell with BBP Architects.
So just to start out, staff gave a great overview. It was, the house was being repaired. They were replacing some siding. I believe it had some dry rot, and that work was happening, and then a complaint happened. They went to get a permit, and that's when, at that time when they were addressing that work, that in plan check, the deck was shown as its existing condition, and then compared to the archive plans, it shown that it had grown towards the front property line. And as Mr. Bauman points out, there was, different setback standards when the house was constructed. I believe it could have been that the front setback was 20 feet or 15 feet. I'm not sure. I looked up some historic information on that. So to note that the existing residence is non-conforming to the 30-foot front yard setback, and you can see that delineation. I guess is that the green, Tony, right there? That would be where the front setback is. So the house, too, is also in that setback. And as the staff report recognizes, a 4-foot wide deck is more just decorative and not very functional. So the property owner would like to maintain the deck as it's been, we believe, since the early 80s, because it does show up in the county tax assessor records, the residential building record, which I have with me if you'd like to see it. I did submit it at some point in one of the packets, either to the Single Family Design Board or the modification. So at the time, the property owner had gone through an addition to add a bedroom back here, down here on the lower level, and this deck in the back. And that work was permitted, and it shows up in the archive plans, and that was done in the 80s. And so when you look at the county records, you see that addition reflected, and you also show that they describe the deck in its current dimension. So whether, the city permit record does not recognize that expansion, if it was done at that time, my speculation is that it could have been done at that time, and it may have even been field inspected. It's, again, total speculation on my part, but the dates seem to line up, so I just wanted to point that out. Back in the 80s, I don't know how things were done a little bit differently than how we do them today. As the staff report mentions, that we did go to the Single Family Design Board, and they do look carefully at glass railings. They did support this, and I think that one of the reasons what I presented at that time, when you stand on the deck and you look down below to the city, I wanted to see how visible is the property from below, from a significant public vantage point. And while I'm on the deck, this is a view from the deck with the unfortunate utility lines in your vision. But I noted that I could see the Santa Barbara Junior High. It's pretty prominent, historic building, and the tower. So I went to the junior high to then look back up at the Riviera and see, well, how visible is the deck? I did this several times because I couldn't find it. You see lots of homes and lots of glazing from below. So I actually had my client put something bright out on the deck so that I could find the house more easily, and still with a bright orange cloth hanging over the deck railing, I couldn't find it. So I had to zoom in with my camera, and what happens is there's all this vegetation across the street and below on the hillside, and I believe from what I could looking at the adjacent properties going back and forth between the house and down at the junior high, that is the roof line that I'm seeing from the junior high. And this is a zoomed in photo. This is not zoomed. So I think that made I presented that at Single Family Design Board, and that allowed them to, aesthetically support the encroachment as well as the design. We also, I'm sorry, just one more note on that. We did have a few letters of support. They're in your packet. We did go and do the hand-delivered noticing to the closest homes and talk to neighbors, and neighbors were like, what, why is the city making you do this? I'm like, well, I didn't want to explain all the details, but this is just the process, and this is what we have to do, and we're going to go get permission for something that has been there since the early 80s, and we had overwhelming support from all the neighbors. No one's impacted by this deck. It doesn't infringe on anybody's privacy. As staff pointed out, there are other examples of these types of encroachments on this street. Because of the topography, you're not really looming over anybody. Across the street, there are no homes that front on the cul-de-sac right here immediately across the street. These homes are all down much lower and are actually accessed off this street below. So when we went to design review, we also proposed some other enhancements out front to sort of engage the space. I'd like to turn that over to Tracy to explain the design aspects.
Okay.
The main objective was just to try to make the deck look as nice as we could and to provide a little bit of additional screening and to try and make some sense of the area below here that is currently not very usable. And there's not a lot of really usable space on the property because of the topography that's happening, and this is a drainage way in the back and things here. So we propose to come in and surround the existing columns with these square Doric kind of style architectural columns that would probably be from a company like Chatsworth, or one of those ones that make a prefabricated column that would go in pretty easily. And we're proposing to keep the existing glass rail because that is in pretty good shape, and it's not something that's going to create a lot of reflection or something that sometimes could be a problem for the design review board. And then we're going to just go ahead and open up the rooms down here to a terrace out there so that it will be usable area in the front, and add a couple of smaller type trees there to screen the deck a little bit more from the street so that it wouldn't be quite as visible from the street, but still would be low enough to maintain the views out, which of course are a big part of the benefit of having the deck. The Single Family Design Board requested that when we came back and saw them for final, assuming we got that far, that we would specify what the planting and things were on the front. So we would follow up and do that at that time. But the intent is to keep them low enough to be able to see over, but to provide a little additional screening for the deck. And I think that's pretty much it.
And the lower portion, the terrace here, or maybe this is for staff, it's not high enough to require modification. The first floor or the lower level improvements is just the two doors, correct?
Right.
That needs the mod. So this is all considered
That would
on
be at
grade.
Right.
Okay.
Grade, yep. That's pretty flat there.
Okay.
And Mr. Reardon, one other point I forgot to mention that staff considered to lend support to the request is the fact that the front lot line is back considerably from the street. You don't really see this front lot line. It looks, you see the street and you see the deck, so it is only set back 10 feet from the front lot line, but if you take the average, like from this middle point, it's about 20 feet. So it doesn't appear as close as it technically is to the front lot line.
Okay. Great, thanks. The one thing I do want to respond to in regards to your presentation, Trish, is regarding the county record. We know that shows when improvements first appeared on the site, but it doesn't necessarily say it's legal. And
I realize that.
yeah. And I understand that there given it was in the 80s, that there is a high likelihood that it was done at the same time. However, it wasn't included on the plans, and if it was proposed at that time, it would have needed a modification. So, the fact that the inspector might have inspected it still would have needed a modification.
It's speculative for sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Sure. So I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to address the staff hearing officer on 866 Paseo Ferrello? No? Like Trish said, I did receive some letters and I read them. There's, I think, 4 in my report. They're all in support of the project and attesting to the fact that the deck has been there for many years. I did go out to the site and walked around the neighborhood. I viewed the other decks on the street, and I have reviewed quite a few modifications in this area, and I agree that this is it's typical of this type of this area in the Riviera, that there's a lot of view decks. I get hesitant, though, in actually referencing particular properties because we don't know which ones are actually legal and which ones aren't. They do exist. We know they exist. Without doing site research, we don't know what exactly is legal or not. But however, in regards to your case and what you're requesting with the front setback modification, do you have your aerial again?
I have a bird's eye view too.
Anyway. So again, this is the property here. Whenever you request a front yard modification, and I know, Trish, you're familiar with this, we look at it with additional scrutiny because it's not only affects your neighbor, yourself, it affects the neighbors and the streetscape as a whole. And in your instance, you are at the end or towards the end of a cul-de-sac. It's not a highly traveled roadway. There are similar improvements, like I said, throughout the Riviera with these view decks. The orientation of your development makes it, an appropriate improvement. It's something that enhances it. I agree, a 4-foot wide deck versus, 11 feet?
11 feet, I think.
Yeah, about 11, 21, yeah. 11-foot deck does make it more usable. Then we look to what other usable areas on the site. Well, there's some areas in the backyard that's usable, but the whole intent of the deck is to get the view. So in regards to your request, I agree with staff's recommendation that it is an appropriate improvement on the lot. It's consistent with other decks in the area. It's at the end of a cul-de-sac. The design board really liked it. You're doing some enhancements to make it look better, and so I can support the project. I would make a change to the proposed findings, though, just to remove reference to particular projects or sites, and just state that it's consistent with the pattern of development in the general area. Additionally, there is a slight slope to the property, not a significant slope, but I agree with the proposed finding in the sense that it's not imposing on the street. It's not elevated high. It's, it does have a gentle slope, but that it doesn't significantly affect the streetscape. Staff's not proposing any conditions, and reviewing your project, I don't believe I need to add any additional conditions. So with that amendment to the finding, I can approve your project. And my action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days. And they also have oversight authority of all my actions. And if they felt this warranted additional discussion before them, they could call it up during that same 10-day appeal period. Mm-hmm. And if that was to occur, Tony would contact you. Okay?
Great.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I think this was my set.
Yeah, we have plenty.
Yeah, I just brought them for you too. I'm not going anywhere.
All right, yeah. Do you want me to stamp this one for you, or that not marked up one?
Tracy.
Okay, I'll keep it in the screen. Okay, the next project is 1562 Marquard Terrace, if the applicant would like to come up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Anytime you're ready, Joanne.
Okay. This property is zoned R1 and it's 8,600 square foot lot. Current development on site consists of a 2-story single-family dwelling, a detached garage, and an detached accessory structures, and some unpermitted structures. The proposed project is for demolition of an as-built addition that was unpermitted at the rear of the garage, for demolition of a chicken coop and a spa at the property, and a chicken scoop and a hot tub at the property. And it also includes 494 square feet of first floor additions, and alterations to the dwelling included a new entry stairway and new openings and a new deck. The deck is right over here within the required 15-foot setback for one-story buildings, and a second-story addition of 194 square feet, and which includes new windows and new openings and exterior alterations. The requests before you today are front setback mod to allow first-story additions with alterations and new openings and a new deck and a new entry within the required 15-foot front setback for one-story portions of the building, and a front setback modification to allow a second-story addition and alterations, including new openings within the required 20-foot front setback for upper portions of the building. A little background for this project: in 1975, modifications were approved to allow first and second-story additions in the required front setbacks, and that's why the existing development is in those setbacks today. Staff would like to clarify that the property line actually extends into the street right away, and the measurements for the existing development in the staff report, the existing dwelling is located approximately 4.5 feet from the front property line and outside of the easements, and the second story is approximately 15 feet existing, which with the prior approval of the modification. Also, there is an existing driveway easement along the west side of the property that leads to a flag lot, and the development is significantly far away from the interior property line on this side. There's also, this is a dead-end street with a hammerhead turnaround, and at the end of Marquette Terrace. So the proposal includes permitting first-story additions, of which approximately 48 square feet were located in the required front setback, and it includes a new entry stairway right over here. And some new openings, which will basically increase, and we'll get to those in the elevations later, but the openings will face the street and the interior, so they won't really impact these adjacent properties. The proposal also includes a second-story addition, of which approximately 24 square feet will be located in the required setbacks, and it proposes new openings on that side. This proposed deck is approximately 12 inches in height. The zoning ordinance allows for encroachments into the setback that don't exceed 10 inches in height. This deck exceeds it by approximately 2 inches, and it's requested because of a grade difference along the side of the property. The property is site constrained due to the existing development on site, and the proposal will meet open yard and parking requirements. Staff supports the front setback modifications because of the site constraints associated with the current development on site, the public road and private easements, the grade difference along the west interior property line, and because the property is located at the end of a dead-end street, and the proposal is not anticipated to adversely impact the adjacent neighbors. The proposal was reviewed by the Single Family Design Board and was forwarded to the staff hearing officer with comments. The parking, it's not actually being reduced in that this addition at the rear never legally existed. So it's proposed to be removed and the garage restored back to its originally approved condition. Transportation staff has reviewed the proposal and stated that the garage will still function as proposed, and as they're not adding more than 50% of additions to the property, which existed as of July 1980, the garage may remain at its current size and is not required to be brought up to current standards. A zoning report for the property identified a zoning violation, and when staff site inspection observed some stored items at the property in various locations, so conditions have been included to address those items. Staff recommends approval of the project subject to the conditions and findings outlined in the staff report.
Okay, great, thank you. I don't have any questions for you right now. Would you like to state your name for the record and provide additional comments? I
Sure.
already forgot your name.
I already forgot. Trish Allen with Suzanne Elledge Planning and Permitting.
Tim Gronquist, homeowner.
Tim,
Yes.
would you like to state additional comments?
I only have a couple of comments to add on. As staff noted, the dimensions are, the setbacks have to be measured from the edge of the public street easement. So that does pose a constraint here and added setback. There is a history of previous additions that required zoning modifications that were supported. The property is at the end of the street. On the other side to the, where's my little north arrow? To the west is Elings Park, and quite a steep hillside on that side. So very little impact to adjacent properties. Little technical mods. I appreciate staff's breakdown of how much of the addition is actually going to occur, being proposed to occur in a setback. When you look at the proposed total addition, which is 688, a pretty modest addition from my point of view. Only 48 square feet of that would be on the first floor, and then 24 square feet of the addition on the second floor, encroaching into those required setbacks. So pretty minor, kind of a technical mod. The deck, just as staff noted, there's some changes in topography there, and we just want some better level access on that side of the property over there. So sort of a technical mod there. The garage was permitted, and it's, when the house was built, it doesn't meet today's interior dimension requirements. At some point, I think it was a previous owner, did some alterations to that garage to add to the back of it. It's kind of an odd addition. I don't know if you walked back there. If you look on, if I may, on sheet 12. The east elevation shows that it's just that area. It's not even a full wall that was added on because of some of the changes in the garage that facilitated better parking inside. So that will be demolished. That's as-built, actually goes over a property boundary. And then this project will resolve an enforcement case and remove this remodeling. And this was storage, and we're calling it, hobby room. I'm sure it will serve as some storage too, but 2 vehicles can park in there. We're not triggering the rule to expand the size of the garage, so we spent some time on that. I think those were my main points. Did you want to add anything?
Not really. I just want to express appreciation for the architect who's unfortunate in a situation where he's not able to attend, so we wish the best for him. I'm just very appreciative for his work because aesthetically, I think he hit a hole-in-one with his initial design. He heard our goals for the project, and when you look at a qualitative description of the property, it's a very attractive design, I think. So I respect his expertise. I also like the fact that the main portion of the addition is towards the rear of the dwelling, which is not really visible to people on the street or our front neighbors. And that's an awkward area of our existing house. It just has some awkward corners, so I think he efficiently made the majority of the addition in that area that was not efficient for us. So that's, I think, an important aspect of this proposal.
Yeah, and just to add on that, it did go to the design board, and just to note that there was no, public opposition. No neighbors came out to oppose the project, so that's always a benefit.
I do have two questions.
Okay.
The noted lot size is 8,600 square feet. It doesn't say net or gross. Does it include all the easements that are on site? Or is that the total size?
That is a good question.
I guess we can quickly do the math.
So I have 86.2 by 120.
So it is net.
I'm going to say that's
Yes, 10,320.
yeah, so that's gross, so we're showing net.
Net,
on the
okay.
sheet.
Okay, and then the other, it's not really a question, it's just if you would point out for people who may be watching at home, the extent of the first story additions versus the second story additions. This area here is first story only, right? Correct? And we
Yeah,
would go-
it's probably easier to look at the floor plans, and
Okay.
they have a little cheat sheet. I think we want to get to sheet 7.
So all the shaded areas on the first sheet represent the first floor layout, correct? There's a portion of the existing porch is being filled in, but then the doorway's changing to face the street versus, correct? Okay.
That's correct.
And then the second floor addition,
This is the only portion here that's in the setback.
correct? But just so in terms of,
So, yeah.
this right here, this is a second, and then this is a second here. So this line here is the second extent of the second floor.
Correct.
And this area here is just first floor?
Having a hard time looking upside down.
I know
For a minute, TV.
There is a better schematic to show, but the shaded areas, the
I think there's
current
some
house, the first floor goes out to here, and then there's a awkward open air porch here. And
Correct, so it's all this right here.
yeah. So the addition on the first floor is this shaded area back here, and the upstairs, current upstairs is designated by this square here, and the addition is here,
So what part
as
of,
well as this in the
so
back.
what part of this second floor addition is within the setback?
It's just a tiny little, it's hard to see on the sheet.
Yeah, oh, here, okay. But this
So right here,
existing ridge. Oh, you're popping out this way.
right here. I think it's just
So-
that part. That's what we determined when we.
Okay, so then on this, no, let me turn it back this way now that you
Yeah.
figured it out, so that TV, it's the right way on the TV. This existing first floor. And I want to lay flat. Here, wait, let me go. There.
You have to compare the existing second floor with proposed.
Yeah, so I think this shows the,
Well, because, see this, there's no setback drawn on this one, but if this goes like this, I'm assuming it goes like this. So it's more of just interior remodel, and what's being added on is back here. There's some double wall or something. See, I think this here denotes, that's just a technicality. It's a window, there's a window coming in.
You're changing the stair too.
I do know that and it's better shown
So it would be better.
here, that the addition of, we have a bathroom upstairs currently, and we're moving it from this region to here. So that's the proposed addition that's the addition on the second floor, as well as the extending closet into the backyard.
Yeah, this part's not in the setback. So the mod that's noted for the second floor is probably more for this new window in this area versus new square footage.
Oh, I see. So if you're asking about a modification for the second floor, I think it pertains to actually the hip of the roof crosses one of these arcs by about 3 inches.
Oh, okay. Yeah, then that's what's
That is
shown.
something
Okay.
that I do remember the architect being
Talking about. So that's probably denoted here.
That's,
This.
I think it's just that.
Yeah, okay. So really, the majority of it's the first floor addition within the setback and the changes. All right.
They're probably calling my cell phone right now.
Okay, so I went out to the site and I viewed the neighborhood to get an idea of the existing setting. And another question I have is regarding, there's an existing fence that goes along, and I think right here. Is it being extended? Is that part?
No.
Okay, it's just going to go, this deck's just going to be out. Because there's
the current fence that's there along that same line will
right here.
be replaced with a newer fence.
And then, so that's
And-
existing, and here's proposed. I didn't know if this denoted, I didn't see a note of what this denoted, if it's now,
Currently, there, the roof extends over a very shallow shelter deck. It's not a functioning deck for sitting, or
it's more of an entry deck.
it's literally about 2.5 to 3 feet deep. It's
Yeah.
kind of an awkward side
we go.
entrance that's really not used.
This right here.
Yes.
Okay.
But I guess to answer your question, we are not going to be extending the fence further into the street. We'll just be replacing it as is.
Okay, great,
Yeah.
thank you. I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to address the staff hearing officer on 1562 Marquard Terrace? Okay, can you come up, and before you leave, you need to fill out a speaker slip, which is the green form over by the notebook. If you want to come up, you can come sit in this chair and turn on the microphone, and then state your name for the record. You can move it up so they can hear it.
My name is Jody Martinez. My husband Rick and I are the owners behind, and we're excited for the Grown Chris additions. They've worked hard on them, and as the neighbors in front are excited and supportive, we want to be, and we want to be as well. They've worked hard on this. I just wanted clarification to understand. I'm not sure which page denoted. Since we're in the back, we have a very window view out, and we wanted to understand how the addition upstairs, the footprint, would it be taking away that view? And I don't think it will be. I just wanted clarification.
Okay. Is that the only thing I can have the applicant clarify? In terms of my review, I review the portions within the setbacks. That's why I was questioning what improvements of the second floor is within the setbacks and what is in the first floor. Regarding the whole design and the mass and size, bulk, and scale, that's the single-family design board. So you also want to go there and talk to them. But I think if we go to an elevation, that they could explain
I think
the
I
changes.
actually, I could, if this is existing, that's going to help a lot. And if we have a rear view of the house,
Page 4 is the
that is
So
front.
That's
So
front,
we
and
want
this
north
is,
view.
So this, and then we'll get it. Okay, so here's the existing.
So the Martinez family that lives behind us, their view of the street is this, which is an extension of the bedroom.
This is all existing.
This is
Okay.
all
So he's
existing.
outlining where the proposed
So
is.
the upstairs, this would be looking towards the very end of the Hammerhead turnaround. The view down the canyon and down into the down the street and across the canyon towards a little bit of Ellings Park is really straight through the house, looking down into the street. We already have the house right here. This extension on the bottom, of course, would just block view of the driveway a little bit. But the house is strictly behind. So the addition that we're doing in the front of the house on the second floor is primarily the bathroom, which will be on this, viewing from the south. So it's really just a mirror image of this, except in the front.
This is existing, but he outlines the proposed.
And that would be visible looking straight down on it as well.
Okay. Your comment?
I didn't follow, but I'm looking at what you were touching here, Tim, back of page, from the back of your house.
Mm-hmm.
I think the roof line changes on this side, which is closest to the hillside. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so
You need to be on the mic, though. Here.
and this is the degree of change in the roof line on this side of the house. Is that true?
Yes.
I would think that's what that denotes right there, correct?
That's correct.
Awesome.
He's got it outlined there, showing
Oh,
the
right.
additions
I
on
see.
the
So it was
existing
this
elevation.
side of the house, second story, what that enlargement might be, or what that roof change might be. And that shows
Just a
it
little
right
bit.
there.
Right.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Is that it? Okay, yeah, thanks. Is there anyone else who would like to address the staff hearing officer on this item? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. And if you could make sure you fill out the form so they have it for the record. It's over by the notebook there. You see green. I didn't see any other letters. Did you receive any phone calls or emails? No. Did we have any, Julie? Okay, so I'll close the public hearing. I went out to the site and walked around the neighborhood. Again, like I said on the other project, whenever something's proposed in the front setback, we look at it with scrutiny and what is it proposed? Is it new floor areas? Is it new decking? And what kind of impacts it has to the street? This one is, at the end of a hammerhead cul-de-sac. The majority of people that come down here is to access the property to the rear. Your site is severely constrained, given all the easements that you have. The existing development on it. In regards to the second floor additions, they are really minor. We usually, in terms of first floor versus second floor additions, we're pretty tough on second floor additions that they respect the front setback. But what you're proposing is minor window changes, and it really is a technicality. Mm-hmm. In regards to your front setback modifications, this one here to infill, you're basically doing a uniform improvement, a uniform extension of this wall, mm-hmm. and it is a small area. It is appropriate. The other addition within the front setback is behind correct? I think it shows more on this one here. There is a little bump out. You can't really tell, but there's a bump out here somewhere regarding utility room. And then there's additional square footage behind it that is still technically in the front yard. However, it's behind the house. Right. That is truly a technicality, and that one is also an appropriate improvement to the site. In regards to the deck, it's, big 2 inches above what's allowed by the code. It doesn't, although it is a raised deck, it's only 2 inches above the finished grade. It's at the end of a hammerhead turnaround. It's not going to have any effect on the public streetscape. So that portion of it is supportable too. I think I addressed all your proposed additions. So, like I said, given the site constraints of the existing easements, the fact that you're at the end of a cul-de-sac, a very low travel volume, the scope of your additions are very minor within the setbacks, I can approve the project. I would like to, though, beef up the conditions just to kind of give more of my reasonings why that I would include the fact that there's the existing public road easement and private driveway easements. And then also the fact that, like I said, it's at the end of a dead-end street and it's infilling the corner of the building. So when you see the resolution, it's going to be, the findings will beefed up just to give more justification of why it is supportable. So with those changes to the findings, the staff is recommending 2 conditions of approval. I don't remember if they're noted or not, but you've read them and you agree with them. It's regarding evading violations.
And removing stuff. And yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't believe I need to add any additional conditions. So with those 2 conditions, I approve your project. And my action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days. And they also have oversight authority of all my actions. And if they felt this warranted additional discussion before them, Joanne would contact you. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is 941 Meteor Road. If the applicant would like to come up. Okay. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. Okay.
I'll put this underneath everything.
Sure. You just cleared the table.
I've got some revised exterior elevations. They're not revised in any shape, but what we did is adjust the hatch pattern because the single-family design board said the way that the elevations read was a little bit hard because it was a 2-dimensional hatch pattern, and what we had to do is alter it to get kind of like the perspective to it.
Okay.
So that's the only thing that we changed on the elevation. So
Okay, we can show that during your part of it.
sure.
So Joanne, if you want to go first.
Property is zone B1, and it's a 10,690 square foot site. Existing development on the property consists of a single-family dwelling, 1 story.
Oh, you want?
So the existing development on site consists of a single-family dwelling, a 77 square foot basement, a detached garage, and a detached shed and trellis. The proposed project includes demolition of the existing garage, trellis, and shed, and demolition of 16 square feet of the existing dwelling, construction of 1,278 square feet of additions to the dwelling, a 208 square foot basement addition, a new 2-car garage, new decks, and a new stairway. And the proposal also includes a new swimming pool, a pool equipment enclosure, new condensing units, new retaining walls and fences, a new trash enclosure, restoration of a historic wall at the property, and associated grading. The proposal will address violations outlined in a zoning information report. The requests before you today are a front setback modification to allow a new garage, additions and alterations to the dwelling, including roof alterations, new openings, a trash area, condensing units, and a pool and equipment enclosure with pool equipment along the Farello Street frontage of the property within the required 30-foot front setback. Also, a front setback modification is requested to allow additions and alterations to the dwelling, including new openings, a new deck, and a new stairway within the required 30-foot front setback spacing Meteor Road, and in addition to allow a swimming pool to be located 10 feet from the front lot line instead of the 15-foot required along the same frontage along Meteor Road. And an interior setback modification is also requested to allow the pool equipment enclosure with a condensing unit within the required interior setback, and that is 10 feet, and they're proposing it at 5 feet. So this lot is irregularly shaped and has front setbacks because of its states the road continues around, and so these are all required front setbacks, which makes it site constraint due to the requirements for setbacks along street frontages. Normally, you would have interior and rear setbacks, and they would be less, but in this case, they're all front setbacks except for this over here, which is an interior setback. The proposal will meet open yard requirements, building height, and parking requirements. The minimum lot size for an E1 zone today is 15,000 square feet, and this lot is less than that, as it's 10,690 square feet, so it's undersized. The development on site is further constrained by the existing development and the required front setbacks and the slope of the property. As I said before, the proposal will address violations in the zoning information report. It also requires an administrative height exception for overheight fences and walls that are proposed at the property and restoration of a historic wall. There's more conditions have been included to address these items as part of the proposal, that these items will be abated for the zoning violations. The administrative, the walls and fence heights are subject to that administrative approval. And so we just wanted to say, in the restoration of the wall, it does require review by the city historian to make sure that it's properly restored in a fashion that would keep the historic nature of the wall. The project was reviewed by the Single Family Design Board and was forwarded to the staff hearing officer with comments. So first, I'd like to talk about the modifications for the elements facing the front along Farella Road. And so the existing dwelling, this is the setback lines, the area of development if you took from all these setbacks. So you can see it's quite small, and so these additions will be proposed to be encroaching beyond that. The existing development encroaches into those setbacks. So the garage is proposed to be attached to the house, and it will be in the front setback. Transportation staff has reviewed this new garage and said it will function as proposed. It will provide a conforming two-car garage for their property, and it is a better location than what previously existed. The old garage was on the property line. It was small. It didn't really function that well, and it didn't meet the minimum 5-foot distance between buildings. So this is, although it's in the setback and it's closer than normal, it is going to be improvement over what existed. The proposal also includes relocating the main entrance from Medio Road to Farella Road. And the proposed additions and alterations include roof alterations and new doors and windows and alterations to windows. The new trash area is at the front over here, but we could see it more on another plan, and the new condensing units and pool equipment enclosure are located here. So, and because of this little encroachment over here, which is supposed to be 10 feet from the interior property line, it's only 5 feet. These modifications, staff recommends approval of the other modifications except for the location of the trash in the setback and except for the condensing unit and the required interior setbacks and the pool equipment enclosure. So other than those, staff recommends approval. And why we don't recommend approval for these elements is there are conforming locations on the property where they could be located. The architect can explain more about why they proposed them in these locations, but the trash could be located in portions inside the garage, and there are just other areas that it could be done, so that's why staff is not recommending approval of those, but the other modifications, we are recommending approval in that Farella Street setback. The other front setback modifications were the improvements along the Medio Road frontage, and they include, well, first let me say that the existing dwelling is non-conforming to those setbacks as it is today. And so the proposal changes in the setback, and there's an 18 to 24-foot street right-of-way here with a landscaped area that's not part of the property, but that has an appearance of these items being set back further than they actually are. So that would allow for additioning some new openings, including a new deck and stairway and a swimming pool in the required front setback. The staff report did not mention the setback for the pool, so I just wanted to clarify that now. The setbacks required for the pool are not 30 feet. It's still in the front setback, but the requirement for a pool is 15 feet front setback and 5-foot interior. The proposal includes meeting the 5-foot interior setback for the pool, but instead of the 15 feet proposed, the pool is proposed to be located 10 feet from the front property line. And as I said before, due to these additional areas that are not really part of the property, but visually they would be moved back, and with the approval, hopefully, of the administrative approval for the overheight walls, it wouldn't have a visibility issue. Regarding the garage, I already stated that it will function as proposed and provides a conforming option for parking at the property for 2 spaces. The proposal also includes these new condensing units and pool equipment, and they are subject to meeting noise requirements that will not exceed 53 decibels from the property line. The applicant has submitted noise specs showing that they will comply with those requirements, and therefore staff has added a condition that the noise producing equipment shall meet the city's noise ordinance requirements, and those specs shall be reproduced on the plan submitted to the building division. So it's clear that they will be meeting those requirements. In addition, the project is located in an archaeological sensitivity area. An archaeological letter report was prepared for the property, which stated that they don't anticipate that they'll find anything, but they recommend the condition for if you find any unanticipated resources that you would come in and stop the project. And so we recommend that condition be included on the plans. And that, so staff recommends approval of the front setback modification except for the trash area and the pool equipment enclosure and the condensing units, and denial of the interior setback mod subject to conditions and finding outlined in the staff report. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Great, thank you. I don't have any comments for you right now. Would you like to state your name for the record and provide additional comments?
Yeah, my name is Anders, first name Anders, last name Troedson, and I am the architect for Robert and Grace Gulak. First of all, thank you, Joanne, for a very thorough report. You've probably been out to the site, and as you may have noticed, there it is severely constrained, not only from the setback requirements, but relative to actually the topography of the site.
Maybe move the thing closer to you.
Sure. Also relative to the topography of the site. In laying out the project, we looked at several different options of design, but one of the major concerns for my client was to maintain a single-story structure for themselves, as well as to maintain integrity within the neighborhood, as well as the views from uphill properties. So we worked at trying to keep the single-story structure, which we did, but we were severely constrained now by the setback. So I think if you look at the next exhibit, the other sheet that we did here, it gives an illustration, I think a clear illustration of basically what the buildable area is, what is
This will help you better.
what the buildable area is according to current setbacks, what the area of the existing structure is, how much of that existing structure now encroaches into the setback area, what then leaves us what buildable area is left, and then where our proposed encroachments would be. So the reasoning, again, behind the layout, the way we proposed the layout, was to bring the access for that residence up off of Farello, so you have more of an easy access for people to walk into it, as opposed to coming up a steep either driveway or staircase coming into the house this way. It also reoriented the view to as you walk in, to be looking out towards the bay. We removed a certain portion of the front area here, which reduced the square footage by 16 feet. That's our reduced 16 square feet. The living room on this side and again, when you go back to the floor plan, you look at the layout, it just didn't make sense with having the garage here, living space here, kitchen area here, with the living room being all the way across on the other side. So we created this as another bedroom, left the existing structure where it is, reallocated the spaces on the interior, put the garage further away from the setback or the property line right now, and again kept it at its most convenient and the least amount of incline into the garage and easiest access. If we tried to keep it off of Medio Road, we would have either a severe drive coming up to it like there is now, or we would have to have done substantial grading to get the garage to be down lower so you'd have access into it, which then would have created a two-story bulk structure on that side, which was just not something that was, I thought, to be very conducive to that corner there. So in all, what we did is kept the single-story structure for the client's purposes as well as for the preservation of the views. This exhibit, this sheet actually shows a difference in the different lot configurations. We looked at a standard lot configuration to show what the actual buildable area would be on a standard rectangular E1 lot. So you'd have basically 5,000 square feet of buildable area that you could work with. Although you'd be allowed only 3,241 square feet floor area, you have this amount of area to work with. Whereas on the same size lot, 10,680 square feet, we only have 1,800 square feet of buildable area in this setback to work with, which severely constrained the project. As far as the condensing units, we can go back to, there was another sheet that we had.
All the sheets.
So our actual location of the condensing unit is from the interior setback, it's 32 feet away. And it's 17 feet, 16'9" from the property line along Farello. The other aspect of this is that this condensing unit is now probably about 7 to 8 feet below grade. If you recall, this Farello rises pretty steeply right here. So the condensing unit is below grade here. It's below grade from the neighboring property. And it's a substantial distance from that, and it meets the noise criteria. So it is quite a bit of distance. So I don't see that was actually part of the interior setback.
Number 2 is also.
Well, these would be the pool equipment. So you basically have the pump and the filter and the heater. Okay. So you have the pool heater, the pool filter, and the pool pump. And the pool pump is actually 10 feet 9 inches away from the property line. So the two items that would be encroaching would be the heater and the filter, which are non-noise producing, which is why we located them the way they are. But we've also got into discussion with Joanne that it's a structure, and I guess by definition, a structure is anything over 10 inches in height. So the question I had is what the actual intention of that ordinance was. Is it for noise production, the requirement to have it limited to the 5 feet, that all structures, which would be a heater and a filter, could not be in the setback. But yet we could have a block wall, which by definition is a structure, but then fences, I guess, and walls are allowed to be in the setback. So we oriented the equipment in such a way so that we did remove and move the noise-producing equipment as far away from the property line as we could. But again, it is about 5 feet below neighboring grade on this side. So its location is in a place where it is the furthest away from neighboring properties and creates the most amount of visual separation and also noise prevention. It's not an enclosed structure. It's just basically a wall with the doors that close it. It doesn't have a roof structure. It's open to the sky. So. That's pretty much it. The pool, we talked about the pool. The pool we kept at the 10-foot setback, trying to push it back to 15 foot would basically take away from any patio space that you would have between the pool and the house.
There's a big area there, though.
It's,
We're going to scale it, but here, from here to here, 5 foot back would be probably here.
5 foot back.
I have a scale.
Yeah, that's, what is that, 8?
Yes.
5 foot back would put you right about here to the water's edge. So then you'd end up with basically 8 feet. So, and then that would bring everything up this way. So then that would come into this point here, and then you'd only have the 8 feet here. So, I mean, yes, could you put it back to that? Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would make the case that, I mean, it is 10 feet from the property line, but the property line is probably 20 feet from the curb here and up about 8 feet. So the relative distance that you're going to, what you're going to prove, or what you're going to change in view will be negligible. I mean, nobody will ever notice that because nobody will ever see this. The other issue is that has been discussion with my clients and the city regarding the vacation of this space here, which if it does become vacated because there are no immediate plans for the widening of Medio Road, which would only be for this short little section, it has nothing to do with the rest of Medio down that way, then you'd end up with basically compliant setbacks all along Medio Road.
Okay. The other thing, there's not a grading plan included in my set, but I did notice, can you explain the grading that's going on?
I'm sorry?
The grading, what kind of grading is necessary? This might not, does this show? The plan?
Right.
This,
We will be preparing a grading plan, but it didn't.
you don't need one here.
Yeah.
I just don't have one, so I
Right.
wanted you to explain to me what's proposed with the grading.
Well, it'd be easier for me on the site plan.
Okay.
If that's okay. Basically, the grading, what will end up happening is the sandstone pier and cap wall along here will be maintained.
Okay.
There will be a new retaining wall that will be put in here so that to create a flat grade coming into the driveway here. So in essence, this area here is going to be graded because right now it slopes up. This is going to stay as existing. We're going to remove the grade in this area here. And the initial calculations are a balancing of the grade of the dirt on site. So whatever we take out in here, we would move over here and fill this area in at this area, and then have these steps coming down because we have steps inside the house that lower this 3 feet or 2 feet, so that we don't have as much dirt to move and fill in this area here. But the initial concept and calculations are that the dirt that we remove from here will be balanced on site. So this will be the area of grading basically in this corner here.
Okay, there you go. Okay, and then in regards to the garage, when I visited the site, I parked right in front of the existing garage. Coming out, it was pretty scary. Went out and turned around. And I'm assuming transportation, have you discussed this with transportation staff?
Yes.
Will you still be backing out onto the street, or is there enough, I don't know.
Well, unless they back into the driveway.
Because there's no, these are all elevations. This all in here is paving. There's not room to turn around.
No, you
yeah.
you couldn't do like a 3-point, 4-point turn. You couldn't do that.
No,
I mean, what they have they have a Mini Cooper, so I mean they might be able to do it with that, but it's still, you would be backing out.
Okay.
And I would say in any place that we looked at placing the garage, you would have to do the same thing. Even if the garage were down here on Medio, you'd still have to back straight out onto Medio. Anywhere we put it, there was just no place for us to be able to generate enough paved area to create a 3-point turn or to turn yourself around to get back out facing either Farello or Medio.
Okay. Okay, another question is what's proposed along, I don't think there's any picture that really shows the front, but here's a combined of it. Here's the street.
Right.
There's an existing driveway curb cut down. So in this here, on the driveway's not shown, but it does say this hedge is going to be preserved.
Right.
There's a fence here. What's happening down off your property?
Well, they would ideally like to landscape it all. I mean, but,
So
we
is this
haven't gotten that
driveway
far
and
yet.
curb cut's going to be removed?
It's gone
It's all
completely.
gone?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Do you know, does this fence and hedge have a encroachment permit since it's in the right-of-way?
I don't know, but what we're proposing is putting the fence back here. So.
Well, this note here says fence to remain,
Oh,
repair and
well,
extend as required.
That would be up here. I mean, I think this is where we're talking
The
about.
11 says the new fence.
New fence here. So we would have the new fence here. So that's a mistake. This would be removed here.
Okay.
Yeah. And I am meeting today with Southern California Edison about putting the power poles underground.
How about the service? You're going to put the pole underground?
Yeah.
The whole pole?
Well, not the pole. The service, not the pole, yes. You're right.
Okay. So it's kind of weird to put a pole underground, but I guess if you want to.
The service, right, you're right.
All right.
We're going to leave the pole above ground.
And now you're going to remove it from the site. It's a service. Okay. Okay, those are my questions for right now. I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to address the staff hearing officer on 941 Media Road? No? Have we received any calls or phone calls?
No, we have not.
And there's nothing, and I didn't see, there's no one showed up at the design board either, huh? Okay, so I'll close. Oh, no, there did.
One
One,
person showed up, yeah.
Timothy. Supports the single-story design. States it would be difficult to fit a two-car garage on a corner lot. Were you proposing a one-car garage at some time?
No.
Okay.
What does it say?
Says, he stated it would be difficult to fit a two-car garage on a corner lot.
I think that's what he stated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I was questioning
No,
what-
we never proposed a single car garage. But
And there is letters of support regarding conservation of the historic wall and the removal of the vegetation from the wall. Okay, so I'll close the public hearing. I went out to the site a couple of times because the first time I couldn't get in the backyard. So I had a couple opportunities to visit the site. And I think I'll start with the front setback along Farello Road. Trying to see if we have a good photo of it. There's plenty of photos. Well, along Farello Road, which is pretty much your, although that is, I'd consider it the backyard area because it's kind of back, behind the house. Coming down, it's screened. There's an existing wall. There is a grade difference. There's going to be a greater grade difference since you're digging down in that area. There is some existing landscaping, which I believe I saw was going to remain like a hedge.
it should be way back.
Well, just a
here.
little one.
Right. That's the one that needs to get removed. That's on that sandstone pier and cap
Right,
wall.
yeah.
So they're talking about removing that vegetation.
Okay. Well, in regards to the encroachments in the front setback along Farello Road, you are improving the situation in that you're moving stuff away from the front yard. As I had said in the previous projects, today we had a slew of front setback modifications, but when you're proposing new square footage within the front setback, it's scrutinized a lot more than in the interior setback, only because it's more of the public setting. It is on private property, but it's part of the public streetscape, and what impacts or what effects, I think is the better word, does it have on the public street setting. So in regards to Farello Road, the street's elevated from the property. You are digging down more. You're removing encroachments. You're moving it farther away. The condenser units, although they're in the front setback, they are tucked in. I think that is all supportable. And any window changes within the front setback, those are generally, they don't affect neighbors. The concerns is more for windows and doors or on the interior setback where there is some interplay between the properties. But in terms of the public street frontage, a lot of times changes the doors and windows enhances the situation. There is some small areas of actual square footage within it besides the garage. That's all appropriate. In regards to the front setback modifications along Media Road, that's where I have a lot more concerns. When you look at the existing, I'll take this back from you. When you look at the existing development here, this is the outline of the existing house in this area. And so the new areas, this is a proposed covered elevated deck. There's square footage in this area. This is coming out about 9 feet coming over. And so there's a large area, and then the pool's even pushed out farther. And I understand the constraints with your lot in that you pretty much have three, although it's a curved line, you have 3 front yards, and you have an interior yard. So you have constraints regarding where you could put development, but that doesn't give you then the carte blanche ability to just cover the whole site. And I understand, too, the the property owner's desire to keep it one story, because 2 stories in this area, causes, it's not consistent with the development in the area. And, a lot of times a 1-story development is more desirable. So I don't know if you want to do additional comments regarding focusing on what you did a really good job in explaining your design thoughts regarding it, but just in terms of the amount of square footage that you are now proposing within the front setback, because you are more than doubling the size of the house.
Yeah, it's as far as the covered patio here. It kind of, what this does is 2 things. This is south facing, so you do get a lot of sun coming in here. So it does protect this exposure. It does give it a little bit more kind of privacy to it because it is right on Medio Road. It also softens this elevation, because when you look at that elevation right now, it's kind of right up there. You got a big 2-story. Well, in essence, it looks like a 2-story wall. So this, bringing a shed roof off of this, where you're breaking the pitch here, you're not keeping the same pitch. It brings that elevation down,
Go to
kind
the
of softens.
elevations you want. Oh, did you want to show your new elevations? Were they better to see?
Sure.
Or no? They weren't. Oh, here's an example from the street. That's not in mine.
Exactly. We added that just. I mean, that, and again, that helps to kind of, and this doesn't reflect the pier and cap wall either, which is another 30 to 36 inches above that. So that would continue on up here, and it doesn't reflect any type of vegetation that would be there. So, or that is there. So going back to off of. When you look at the other elevations, you'll see that we didn't have the hatch pattern that actually showed the kind of the perspective of it. It was just all 2-dimensional.
Well, and there's dash lines too, showing that solid was good.
Yeah. So this again, as this comes down, it brings your eave line lower than keeping the eave line higher as the existing is. So it brings the overall massing of this smaller. So in perspective, when you're looking up at it, it does create a smaller impact from Medio Road. Bringing the stone around the base of it, which we want to do the Santa Barbara sandstone, will again give more mass to the bottom and give it a little bit more like mass to the bottom of it, and thereby limit the amount of just singles exposed stucco that you're going to be seeing. So that's like the effect of this. I think will be a positive effect to that elevation. Is it absolutely 100% necessary? No, but I do believe that it will be a positive impact in addition to the structure here. As far as this element, which is the staircase, again, that's a function of design from the interior. The form does follow the function on this. So when you look at how to get from the upstairs to the downstairs with the most functional use of space, the location for it was at this point where you're not creating more grading by having to go further back north. The further north we went, the more grading we had to do. So if we kept the staircase towards the south, since the lot naturally slopes down towards the south, we minimized the amount of grading we had to do there to get down to that lower level.
Just to clarify, it's still 1 story. What you're talking about is getting down to a basement.
That basement, correct,
yes,
exactly.
Just in case we've been talking about 1 story. And you're talking
So that deals with those 2 areas. As far as the living space, if we go to the floor plan. Again, it is a product of the actual layout of the space, and as you come into the front entry, how you move from space to space within the house. As you come into the entry, walking into a dining kitchen area, to try to bring this back would basically eliminate any. If we brought it back to this point here, you basically would end up with a dining space only, no living space. So it was really hard to try to fit all those areas in. Without encroaching into the setback on either side. So it was either a question of encroaching into the setback this way or bringing it back out this way. If we brought it back out this way, then we encroached into our drive access. So then it said, okay, now where are we going to put the garage? So we would have to reorient the garage somewhere else. So it really was a puzzle trying to get all the pieces together. And we did limit as much as we could the encroachment. So we kept this back. I think this is like 14 feet, and the existing encroachment over here is 9 feet. So we did keep it further back than what was existing encroaching. So we did not encroach any further than what was already there. So, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to design something. But we looked at trying to get it to a point where we addressed all the desires of our client, as well as minimizing the impact on the lot as well as to the neighbors. And the second story was just, like I said, for two reasons, not an option to them. So. Yeah, this is 14 and a half feet. So, from the street, it's 34 feet.
Yeah, when you, I smell smoke. Yes, I know. Looking at, I know this is 8 and the way the lot lines and everything, but, this appears to protrude far out. When you look at this, I printed out some aerials. Oh, here they are. Okay. So to look at, kind of get an idea of the pattern of development. Here, this doesn't, and I realize this is from our map system, and everything's approximate in terms of the property line, so it makes it look closer. But here's the subject property right now, and you look at the development, there's various setbacks from Meteor Road. Here's actually an aerial. I zoomed in. Here's the subject property. Here's the one across the way. You can see it's a rather large house, too. Here's the whole property approximately in this area. And you look at the different setbacks that are in the
This is the property line, though, right here, right?
No, this is here. This is the property.
No, I mean for the neighboring property.
Well,
it goes like this here.
It's approximate. It's not. I would never. It's an estimate. The important thing here is shows that, yes, this doesn't follow the street line, but I can't tell you if it's here, closer or not, just with the scale. So then here's a blow up of it. Again, here's the property. What I look at more is from the edge of the road pavement to the house versus where the property lines is, because that's what people see when they're driving around the neighborhood. Because I'm not going to drive by, oh, the property's at the power pole, or people know power poles. Well, they are on property, but so looking at the different setbacks of the neighborhood, and so that's why I'm struggling with this type of thing. I understand that this is undeveloped. I don't know that the city ever has any desire to widen the roadway. I know in terms of emergency access, we hear a lot of things about narrow roads, steep roads, so maybe a possibility in the future. I don't think we have plans right now. So I need to look at where the property line is in terms of what you're requesting. And again, in regards to the pool, coming out, I agree that it's different than a structure, a raised structure. It's going to be on grade. But then again, like I said, everything seems to be just pushed out to it.
Excuse me. Your visual will be moved further back. So with this fence being gone right now, and you look up there, that's going to be much further back now. It's going to be whatever this distance is, about 8 or 9 feet back.
Do you have an elevation of this, or is it only of the house?
It's only of the house.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this, let's see, 13,
right.
30 inch.
Right.
So this will be just 30 inch, and then it's going to be at 30 inch, or raised that area.
Right.
Okay. All right, and then in regards to the pool closure, when we look at this portion of the site's vacant right now, when we look at new development, you're asking for modifications. It is one of the first questions we ask is, why can't it conform to the requirements? In this case, there's a couple of reasons why it can't, but there's also a couple of reasons why it can. One, again, is the irregular shape of your lot, the fact that pretty much you have 3 front yards. why can't it be just moved over a little bit? The concern is I know the way you have it designed, is a certain way with the filter, the pump, and the condenser. But, when pool equipment changes or fails and gets changed out, who's to say that that's not going to be the similar?
I've come across that. I mean, that same question with a lot of other things, and there's no way to determine that with anything that fails. Right. I mean, it's just,
right.
I mean, if somebody, whatever it may be that fails, there's no guarantee that somebody's going to rebuild it to, current zoning codes or building codes. But again, it was my interpretation and understanding of that I did not look at this equipment as being a structure. And I could not find anything in the municipal code that stated anything about location of pool equipment. So in other cities and municipalities that we work in, there are specific requirements pertaining to equipment, whether it be mechanical equipment, condensing units, or pool equipment, that in their distance from the property line. So there was nothing in there about that. It just said structure, and I didn't consider the pool pump or the filter or the heater to be a structure. So I mean, that was it could be shifted over, but again, I go back to what is the actual intent of saying that a structure cannot be located within the setback, and does that really truly pertain to a pool filter?
It does. Yeah. Well, that's my point with what you were saying, is that you can't guarantee in the future what it's going to be like. So in your justification, when you're saying the actual noise part of it is more than 10 feet away, well, we don't know that's going to happen in the future, that the structures provided there in the interior setback, that's what the current proposal is. But I can't use that as a justification in terms of the modification because the area is there.
Yeah, no, I mean, we can move it. It didn't make logical sense to me. I mean, I understand having the distance from the property line or the distance required for the sound, the noise criteria, and the location. You have to move it a certain distance relative to how much noise it's producing. I get that. I get that with a built structure or anything like that. But to me, or a permanent structure, but a heater and a filter are not considered permanent structures. A pool enclosure, now the walls that surround it, to me, would be a permanent structure, but then by right they're allowed as walls. So I could have these walls here, but I couldn't have any equipment inside it.
Or storage or anything. We see that in the structure. That's Santa Barbara.
Okay.
That's Santa Barbara. We see it as a structure in the setback.
So I get that. So since those are considered to be structures, a pool filter and a pool heater are a structure, then yeah, we could relocate those.
Okay, so I got to move on.
Sure.
So in regards to, we'll go back. So with the improvements within the front setback here, the condenser unit, I don't agree with staff regarding the trash enclosure. I think that is okay in this location. It makes sense. It's next to the garage. It's next to where they probably collected trash up here. It's below grade. It's screened. I could support your request for a modification for the trash area in this location, as well as this condenser unit in the front yard. I think staff was okay with these condenser units. It was just this structure right here that they were concerned with.
With the structure or the equipment?
No. Let me just do this. Okay. So in regards to the request for the interior setback, I agree there's another location that could be proposed. It could be moved out of the interior setback. So I agree regarding this use structure, whatever you want to call it, that part is not appropriate in this location. In regards to the front setback modification on Media Road, I still have concerns regarding the amount of the encroachment that you're requesting. I really like your explanation on why you are proposing this covered deck area. And with your explanation, I feel comfortable with it. It's getting pretty close to your actual property line. However, I agree with your design philosophy that would be an enhancement over what's there now. And although it does represent an additional structure, we call it a structure in Santa Barbara.
No, I get that.
Okay.
We can step it in if you like to.
I'll leave it up to you if that is better design-wise in terms of I think it is imposing on the corner already. But to soften that corner there, that would be nice. But as it's proposed now, I could make the finding. In regards to this larger addition here in the front yard, I could be supportive of it if it was pulled back maybe another 3 feet, so it's a maximum of 13 feet from the setback. It still provides for the jog in this area. This portion back here with your stairway and that, I don't have a concern with that. It's almost a uniform extension of the line that's already there. I do realize it's not an exact line. But when you view the street, this property is different than the other ones that I looked at, is that it is elevated from the street. So it is up, and it already, I know it's not the most beautiful house. I hope I didn't hurt you.
No, I didn't.
But it is imposing from the street.
Right.
So anything to make it look nicer, I think is good. But coming closer, I have the concern it is going to alter the whole streetscape, and that I could support the requested modification with this element pushed back another 3 feet, and that would keep it more in line when you draw the line across of what's there now. It does provide some undulation of the front, or whatever you want to call it.
Modulation,
That this comes out and then it kind of pops, provides some interest from the street. But I couldn't support this as it is so far out, and that a 3-foot reduction would be supportable.
Could I make a comment on that?
Sure.
A couple things that will help, I think, when the project is completed, and the visual representation of it is that what adds to the mass of it right now is this driveway that comes up there, because that kind of...
I wish we had a good front.
As you bring that driveway, because the driveway coming up to it is lower. So what we're proposing is that this area is going to be taken out, and this is going to be graded back in. So this will be filled back in here to follow basically the natural contour right now. So it's going to raise this grade up a little bit here, which will now soften that visual effect to it.
All popping
right,
out.
This is coming out further, right? But this is part of what your aesthetic you're viewing right now, is the driveway on the side there. That's one thing. Then the other is just going back to the floor plan. And when we design structures, whether residential or commercial, we also look at the viability and usability of the space from a furniture perspective. So sometimes people will design structures, and although they call them a certain space, living and dining, once you try to furnish that place, they don't work. They just don't make any sense. So taking 3 feet out of here, in essence, will do just that. It'll create a space that will be neither living nor dining. I mean, it could be one or the other. It could not be both. We just do not have the square footage. By the time you allocate a traffic pattern through here to get from your bedroom area over to the entry or to the kitchen, and then you put a dining table in there, and then you try to put a couch and maybe a couple side chairs in there, it's not a big space to begin with. It looks big because it's open, but taking 3 feet out of it, if we're projecting out right now 6 feet, we're taking half of that space out this way, and we're projecting basically 3 feet out in front of what's existing, which, once again, I worked at getting the right proportions as tight as I could to make sure it worked.
Okay, well, I look at the community, the overall setting, the zoning, and that kind of stuff. I understand all those constraints, but I can't support that much of an encroachment. So what I would do is I would like to approve the project with the condition that reduced 3 feet, and you have the option to appeal that to the Planning Commission. That way you have an approval, you can move forward, and you can decide what you want to do. And the Planning Commission is a 7-member body, and you can go before them and ask for that to be removed. But for
negotiate a 1.5 feet, or something in there.
For my comfort level, like I said, when I'm looking at it, I wish there's a different picture, like an angle from the corner.
Wasn't there one on that?
This is the house. None of it really shows what my concern is. Here's the house, and it's more of Is this from Google or from?
No, I had a drone. It's we have a full video of it too.
Oh, that's nice. I just can't get there. 3 feet.
I asked if we could play it here today, but they didn't have the.
Oh, yeah,
they
we
didn't
don't have the
support
capability.
for
Yeah,
that.
no, we don't. Or the city.
I don't know if there's anything I could do to allay the concerns for that. I understand looking at the neighborhood, but I've also looked at that, especially south of Medio. I mean, those houses are really close. A lot of them are very close to the property line. And I understand about it being up on the higher up you get, the more kind of imposing of an effect it has. But I do believe that even if we did raise the grade somewhat here, so you actually lessen the amount of exposed wall, you'd have less of a visual impact that way. I don't believe that moving 3 feet back is going to significantly change the effect that you have on Medio. It's a reduction, but it's not. If you're thinking about it from actual visual impact, moving it 3 feet wouldn't make that big of a difference. Moving it 10 feet, 15 feet all the way back somewhere to here would make a difference. But from there to there, it's, from a visual impact perspective, it doesn't create much. Stepping this in would create more because you are creating a greater distance this way. But moving this back, because it is parallel with the street at that point, you don't get that perspective from the corner.
Yeah, I just can't get there. I just can't get there with the amount of encroachment that's being asked. I can't get there. So what? Like I said, the trash enclosure. I can get there in the trash enclosure, and then with you clarifying the condensing units, those I'm going to take that out. But this pool equipment enclosure, that's the whole enchilada there, the whole part of it with all the information. So,
but the enclosure can stay. It's just the equipment has to move.
The walls can stay. Once it's enclosed, we ask what that space is for, because we wouldn't allow storage and then close storage.
With no roof on it, so it's not. It's basically indentation in the wall.
The indentation, yes, no door or anything. Just design like this. That's fine. That's allowed in the setback.
Okay. So relocate the pool equipment.
Yes. In regards to the front setback modification regarding Media Road, that could remain as is. The conditions will change what's allowed there. Originally, I was concerned with the covered deck, but that can stay. Again, so the third finding here, where it's the staff hearing officer finds that the front setback modification facing Farella Road for I'm going to strike out trash enclosure and just keep pool equipment closure and cut off the condensing units, because the condensing unit, you were talking about this here, right, Joanne? Not this one?
No. Yeah.
Okay. They're not consistent, and so that modification is denied. And then in regards to the interior setback modification, that one stays the same, which is denying it. So in regards to the conditions of approval, the fence, so that note the fence should be removed. This 9.
Right.
I was going to include that encroachment permit be obtained, but this fence noted as number 9 shall be removed. And then the hedge here, Joanne, is that, what's the purpose of keeping the hedge here? Because that is within the public right-of-way, and technically that does need an encroachment permit.
None. There's
Yeah.
no reason. They're really, it would probably just got left on there, and I didn't, we hadn't gotten to the landscape plan yet, so
Right.
I would assume that the landscape architect will remove that.
Okay, so I'll put in the conditions either an permit be sought or it be removed
So is encroachment permit required for landscaping in this
over
area?
a certain height, or inches
Oh,
in height.
right, okay.
Yeah. So the hedge. And then, since it's not noted on the plans or anything, the condition will be that the existing driveway and associated curb cut on Media Road be removed. And this, the curb, there is a curb here.
Correct.
It just be extended across that way. I don't think there's a curb in this area. I couldn't tell with all the landscaping. It seems like it stops in front of this, but then it starts again. My condition is, unless Public Works does something different, that's a whole different process. Mine is just that this curb cut, where the curb cut is,
To be filled in.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure there is curb here. I just,
Okay. And then that the living room, dining room area within the front setback shall not encroach more than 13 feet into the front setback. So,
about 13 feet from the property line.
nice try. It's 14 right now. So I'll make sure it says front setback. And then the other conditions she proposed are the same. And you read those regarding the stand, because you mentioned them,
Yeah.
the ZIR stuff, the historic sandstone cap wall, any overheight hedge or fences and walls need an administrative exception.
Yeah.
And then okay. So the pool equipment, and number 4 actually, it says the trash area enclosure, condensing unit, those are crossed off. So the pool equipment enclosure shall be relocated to comply with the city zoning ordinance. So with those changes to the findings and the conditions of approval,
We
Yeah.
just wanted to mention, do we make findings about the pool on Media Road? Or
um,
I didn't include that this time.
yeah, we should make sure that that's clear in the findings that the staff hearing officer finds. Well, it's just this generic here. So staff hearing officer finds that this front setback modification facing Media Road is consistent with the purposes and intent of the zoning ordinance. So it's all the improvements as shown on the site plan. You can put as shown on the site plan.
So the pool's okay to remain intact.
Yeah. Okay, so with those changes, I approve your project. And like I said, my action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days. And where you file the appeal, if you wish to do it, is here at 630 Garden Street. Okay. Instead of City Hall. All the other ones are City Hall.
We'll work something.
Okay. And the Planning Commission also has oversight authority of all my actions. And if they felt that this needed additional discussion before them, the liaison could call this up during that same 10-day appeal period. And if either of those would occur, Joanne would let you know.
Okay.
Okay?
So for clarification, the pool's okay, trash enclosure's okay, the Farello encroachments are okay. Relocate the pool equipment, so the enclosure, the
indent in the wall
whatever.
is
they
not- don't call it
but we can
enclosure.
move it over. Okay, so that can say the encroachments along Medio are okay with the exception of the living room.
And it would be good if you can jog that in, but I didn't require it.
Okay.
Just a clarification, because you said that you were denying the front setback modification for the pool equipment as well as the interior, and he spoke just about relocating out of the interior. If it's relocated out of the interior, could it remain in the front?
Yeah. You would have,
Because
okay.
this would be 30 feet. If we go back 30 feet, that's going to put it back here somewhere. So there's no place to put it.
Okay, I don't, given the grade difference, I don't have, in this particular situation, a concern with the enclosure being in the front yard.
Equipment.
The
Sorry.
pool equipment. Well, you're proposing an enclosure. Let me read the finding. Where do you, okay, I'm going to reopen it, Julie. Because I could do it one of two ways. If you want to specify right now that the wall of the enclosure be at least 10 feet from here, are you proposing the same area, but wouldn't it impinge on your bedroom patio?
Well, that is why I kept it at that point. What I could do is I'll bring it over as far as we can. So if I brought it over to this area here and just put the equipment in this location, just brought the whole thing. So
Is that 10?
Well, 10 feet is at this point right here. So 10 feet brings us right up along there. So if we put the enclosure here, or the enclosure here, we would still then maintain this area. I mean, we could do something decorative with the doors there. So we could push it over.
Okay, so what
that
I will
way.
do is I'll amend it and that the front setback for all the improvements along, thank you for clarifying that, along Farello Road is approved, and that the request for the interior setback modification is denied, and the associated I don't even know if I need condition number 4 then, because it comply with the city zoning ordinance.
Yeah.
It's denied. I approved it for the front setback, so that's just a given. So actually, I'm going to delete number 4.
Okay.
And then with that change, then I make the revised findings and revised conditions of approval.
For clarification, the way I read the ordinance is that anything over 10 inches in height, correct? So
Well, that's staff's amendment. Anything technically is an obstruction. What we've done to try to recognize some reality is we've said 10 inches is our threshold. Anything
Right.
above 10 inches, we're going to require a modification.
okay. So as the pool pump is less than 10 inches in height.
That you can work out with
Okay.
Joanne.
So
That's-
just okay. I'll talk with.
Yeah, that's all
Thank you so much for
technicalities
your
and stuff in that,
consideration, yeah.
Joanne. Sure. So then we'll move on to the last item, sorry,
Thank you for your time.
which is 750 Hialeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Over here?
Either one.
Thank you for your patience.
Go ahead.
That one was the better one. And you blew it.
Good morning.
Good morning. There's Felix, there's that one. So anytime you're ready.
Okay. Thank you. I'm Andrew Vermond, the project planner for this project at 750 Calle Alea. That's proposed front and interior setback modification to approve an as-built deck on the property. There was originally a 100 square foot deck on the south side of the building, and this additional wraparound construction was discovered in a
GIR
information report that it was not permitted. So the applicants come forward to request mods to permit that structure. The property is in the E1 zone on the Mesa. It's the last property on Calle Street. It's again, we've got this hammerhead dead end, and it's well, I've got some photographs. There's a garage below, and a deck in the houses above, and let's see here. The single-family design board found the deck appropriate when they reviewed this. And they felt that the vegetative screening between this property and the next property on the street was
Next
sufficient.
rubber is lower.
Yeah. And they forwarded it to the staff hearing officer with generally positive comments. Staff's in support of this 1-foot encroachment here on the interior setback.
Now, can I say one thing?
Oh, wait, let him
Okay.
finish his
Sorry.
presentation, then I'll give you a chance to.
And then it would be a 15-foot encroachment on the 30-foot setback from the road easement. But however, because it's at the end of the street and it wouldn't impinge on the streetscape or community character, it's staff supportable of that as well.
Okay, great, thank you. Would you like to state your name for the
Yeah,
record?
My name is Alan McComb.
Okay,
And Nicholas Sanford.
okay.
I'm a little hearing impaired, and you have a soft voice.
Oh.
So I thought I'd mention it.
Okay, so you have problems hearing me?
A little, no, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Yeah, but I was sitting back there and I couldn't.
Okay, thanks for letting me know. Lets me know for
Yeah.
other meetings
Thank
too.
you.
Sure. Would you like to add?
Yeah, I
Add
was just trying to say that the reason this is 9 feet is that the city originally approved plans with the house. The approved plans show the house square on lot, and it's not. It's tilted.
No.
So when we first looked at it, it was 10 feet all along. But because it was showed as tilted on the aerial survey, that's 9 feet. And also, the city changed, the easement used to be E3, which had this 20-foot setback. And they made E1 with 30-foot setback. What I'm curious about is that these stairs are not part of the plan. I mean, they've always been there. The original. He's the original owner.
So there was some part of the deck in this area to get to your, is this the front door right here?
They went up the stairs to a landing to the front door.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why they're not included in the modification request. It's just
Right.
the yellow area here that's been
Right.
extended. Okay.
And anyway, what I don't understand is that if the stairs were in the setback before,
Here, we can use that.
if these stairs were in the setback before, which they apparently were, because it's only 20 feet from here, or whatever it was, 20 feet to the house, and the setback was 20 feet back then. So they were built in the setback. So how come?
I couldn't tell you that. I wasn't around at that time, but it was, if it's shown on the archive plans, then it is legal. It's not the subject for today's
Right.
hearing. What's the subject for today's hearing is what the new improvements were.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, his brother-in-law, who's a contractor, built the deck. And apparently he just used the old plans that showed this 10 feet.
Plumb.
And he went to this setback, whichever, I mean, went to this line.
Oh, assuming that this was the legal setback, so he just
Right.
extended it out. Okay.
Okay.
And I talked to Public Works, and David there, and David told me he'd never seen an easement like this. He'd never seen one. So he didn't know, he actually didn't even know if it was an easement. He thought it might have just not been an easement. So I went to the county and checked with them, and it's recorded as an easement. So he had said he'd never seen one like this. So I don't know what that means, but
Well, it's probably so if you dead end.
he
you
owns
go
down to
like
here.
that.
This is a lot line.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to address the staff hearing officer on 750 Kaya Alea? Have you received any emails or calls?
I have not.
Okay, so I'll close the public hearing. I went out to the site and reviewed it, and like it says in the staff report, and like Andrew said, it's the end of a dead-end street, and there's no traffic further on. And like you've heard me, he sat patiently through the rest of the hearing, that, you know, in this type of situation, when it's at the dead-end street, it is a front setback modification request. However, it's not habitable square footage. It's a deck-type structure.
Right.
These types of improvements are appropriate improvements. It enhances the outdoor use because your property, does it have a flat area in the back? I just focused on the front, but
I don't know. It's got
Yeah.
a lot of from here to here.
it's like up, right?
Right.
Yeah, that was my impression when I.
Have you ever set of plans with? It has the elevations and
Oh, that's fine, yeah. This is good enough.
engineer stuff. So
Yeah, this is good enough. So this provides a flat area for you to be able to use outside
Right.
and to enjoy the view, and it doesn't impose on the street
Right.
scape. And so it's something that is supportable, and I can make the findings that staff proposed. I do want to, though, expand on the findings where it refers back to section 4 of the staff report. Just expand why it's appropriate. It's at the end of the cul-de-sac. It's not imposing on the street. That kind of stuff, just so that it's clear in the record of what I found, how I made the findings. And then you read the condition that the staff's proposing that the violations outlined in your ZIR be abated. Which one of these is this? Correct? I don't.
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward deck. I don't
Yeah.
need to add any additional conditions. So I could make the findings with the additional discussion of why the improvement is an appropriate improvement, and approve your project subject to the condition of approval. And my action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days. And they also have oversight authority of all my actions. And if they felt this warranted additional discussion before them, they could call it up during that same 10-day appeal period. And if either of those would occur, Andrew would contact you. Okay?
now, Andrew, you have all the full set of plans for the engineers drawings and all that too, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Is there something happening next Monday? Somebody, I had on the calendar of the 14th.
Well, Andrew can talk to you after that. So,
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So you have your approved project, and I adjourn the meeting.
Okay.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you.